Okay, so my next book that I'm going to talk about is Unfollow by Megan Phelps-Roper. She used to be a member of the Westboro Baptist Church, and I was really excited to read this book. It just came out not that long ago, and I enjoy reading about cults and ways of extreme living just because it's so different than me. So I think all that stuff is very interesting. So if you don't know anything about Westboro, it's in Topeka, Kansas, and the Eastside Baptist Church in Topeka wanted to open up a second location that they were going to call Westboro. So they picked this guy named Fred Phelps to be its first pastor. And he was the one that kind of took the scriptures and interpreted it as he saw them and made them more extreme as the years went on. An interesting thing about Fred was he was a lawyer, and he was a very popular discrimination lawyer, one of the most popular discrimination lawyers in Topeka during the Civil Rights Movement. He would be the first person, if an African American was thinking of filing a civil rights lawsuit or a discrimination lawsuit or anything like that, Fred was the first person that they would call. They wouldn't even call other African American lawyers. They called Fred, which was super interesting, and he became very controversial just because of that. He was willing to take on cases that other lawyers weren't. So this is kind of where his fight against the city started to take place. It was during this time. He didn't like how Topeka and its citizens were treating African Americans. So in 1979, he was actually disbarred in state court. There was an issue that happened. He was disbarred in state court, but he was still allowed to practice in federal court. So Westboro Baptist, it's known for its extreme beliefs against all groups, but especially against LGBTQ community, Jews, Catholics, anyone that's not in their church, they go against. They fight strongly against them. They have protested all kinds of things, funerals, military funerals, Sandy Hook, any shootings, Aurora, Colorado, any of that stuff. They seek out these type of things to go and protest and to get their word out, is what they call it. So they believe that if you aren't a member of their church and don't follow their policies and protocols, then you're damned and you're going to hell. I thought it was interesting that Fred was this widely known, popular lawyer in Topeka, so passionate about the African American community, yet he was so biased against these other minority groups, which to me didn't really make any sense. It's just so strange. But anyway, so Fred had a bunch of kids, and they all have many kids, and they're all highly educated. They go to the public high school, but they don't interact with them outside of class, so they just stay in their own little close-knit family. But they all go to college. A lot of them have law degrees, and they work at the family Phelps law firm. So they're all very highly educated. It's not like these people are just brought in and they don't know anything about the world. No, they are very smart. It's also known that Megan says in the book that the first loyalty is not to the truth, but it's to the church. So even if they were to question something, they have to follow whatever the church does. It's not what they think is the truth. So a couple of things that I thought were super odd about some of the stories. Back when Fred was younger, he found this running program on the back of a Wheaties box. So he made all of his kids had to join their running program, which included daily 10-mile runs. Daily. Even for the kids in elementary school, they had to run 10 miles every day. That is insane. And then on Saturdays, he increased the mileage to 26. 26 miles for elementary students that they had to run. What? And one of the kids, his name was, to Megan, he's known as Uncle Tim. When he was 7 years old, he ran his first marathon at 7. 26 miles. It's ridiculous. Another kind of odd story was they were known for protesting military funerals, especially after 9/11. And there was a Marines funeral that happened in Maryland that they went to protest, and the family had actually filed a civil lawsuit against them for things like defamation, invasion of privacy, and things like that. Well, this put Fred into a panic because he was worried how this was going to affect them protesting other funerals and if they were still going to be allowed to do that. So he's in this panic, and they're in the church. He's got these people around him. They were in the sanctuary. So he's just coming up with all these worst case scenarios, like, what if this happens? What if this were to happen? Blah, blah, blah. Just coming up with all these, really extreme scenarios. So then he stops and he says, the Lord could just kill them, as in the family of the Marine that filed the lawsuit. If the Lord were to just kill them before this would all go to court, then this wouldn't, none of this would happen. None of this would take place. So what does everyone in the church do? They stopped what they were doing. They got down and they started praying that this would happen. They started praying that the Lord would kill this family so this whole lawsuit would stop and would not continue. This case ended up going to the Supreme Court eventually because it was so highly debated about the First Amendment and what they could and could not do. But anyway, super strange. Megan admits that now that she's able to look back on, a lot of different things, but specifically that situation about the Marines family, that she says it's hard to believe that she and everyone there at the time displayed what she called as logical blindness, which obviously, the Lord could just kill them. No big deal. The book ends by saying that Westboro is not unique because they have an us versus them mentality, which applies to a lot of what's going on now in the world. Politics, she talked a little bit about politics and the spread of ideas via the internet, how, okay, you can't contain even these bad ideas or the hatred. You can't contain it on the internet. It's going to spread no matter what. And she actually used Twitter a lot. She was very vocal on Twitter, and that was how they got their message out. It was not only these crazy protests, but was being very active on social media. So Megan left in 2012 after she started to question the church and why they were doing certain things that they were and their beliefs and their policies. And this was after a group of random people, men in the church, got themselves together and started calling themselves the elders, which is typical for a lot of other cults. What happens is they become the go-to disciplinarian, basically. So these people got themselves together and they called themselves their elders. And just that, in particular, having this group of elders goes against their traditions and beliefs in what Westboro is. They believed prior to this that every decision to be made had to be checked on with all of the members. Like they would write these extensive emails and text messages to make sure that everyone knew what was going on. So then now we suddenly all randomly have this group that is going to decide what disciplinary actions, how to interpret the scriptures, events, all of this stuff. Now they're going to be the ones to be in charge of all that. So Megan, she really didn't like that. And there were some other things that happened. She didn't like how her mother and her sister were being treated unfairly by them. They were basically being ostracized. And this is her dad, her mom, from her mom. Her dad is the pastor. How can this be happening? So she left in 2012, and then afterwards she was able to meet up with some other siblings that had left prior, other friends and other family. So that was something that was really nice to see, that she was able to meet up with those other people and question why they had left as well. And then not too long after she left, she went back to Kansas because she had heard that Fred, her grandfather, was sick and was in hospice. And I don't want to give away like what happens, but it is insane. Like the treatment of this guy, I can't even describe. You just have to read it if you want to know. That's all I'm going to say, because it's insane. So that's basically the book in a nutshell. I will say that I did like this book. It just took me a while to get used to her style. Like the first 2 chapters, I really struggled. She's trying to set up a lot of things, which I get, but she would, write something, but then she would add the scripture that would prove, to show the reader why their words or their actions were supported and accepted because it said so in the Bible. So she would add that a lot. And I got to the point where I would just skip over that stuff later because it didn't make any sense to me, like in my reading. It was just something that was slowing me down. So that's there. And I also really like how she talks about her thought process of leaving and then what happened afterwards. Like she really goes into but even before she left, like how she was thinking and the things that she was thinking and what were the repercussions of this versus that, and just like the minute details of things that she had to do or say, because if she said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing, then they would question her and say, oh, why are you saying that? And then she would be punished for something simple like that, like her sister was experiencing in that time. So she also talks about seeing her family and other members out in public and how that felt, and then how they would try to shame her through text messages. They would call her like different names, not her real name, just to show her that she's no longer important and that she's going to hell. So, but overall, enjoyed the book. After the first 2 chapters, it took me a minute, but yeah, like I said, I like reading stuff like this. So if you read it, let me know what you think. I want to know what your opinions are. If you have any other suggestions for books that you want me to read or you think are just really good, let me know. Leave a comment on the bottom.